Listen, I need you to pause everything and really focus for a second, because what I'm about to tell you is the fastest way to change how the world, and specifically how women, perceive you. If you're a man over 35 and you've started to feel like you're becoming invisible, I want you to forget everything you've been told about winning the genetic lottery. We've been conditioned to believe that attraction is all about having a perfect hairline, a shredded six pack, or a bank account that looks like a phone number. But the hard truth is that those things are only a fraction of the game. Real, raw attraction isn't a logical choice a woman makes after checking your credentials. It is a primal biological response triggered by specific psychological shortcuts that are hardwired into the human brain. The reason you see average looking guys with stunning, high value women isn't magic, it's signals. They are subconsciously hitting triggers that most men don't even know exist. Today, I'm pulling back the curtain on the 10 silent triggers that flip a woman's attraction switch to on the very moment she notices you, and the best part is that you don't have to change a single thing about your face or your clothes to make them work. We're talking about a total shift in your presence that makes you magnetic without you having to say a word. Before we dive into these secrets, do me a quick favor. Hit that like button and drop a comment below letting me know where you're watching from today. I read through these comments because I'm genuinely invested in seeing this community of grounded, high-value men grow across the globe. Now, if you're ready to stop being the guy who gets ignored and start being the man who commands the room, let's get into the first psychological trigger. The first thing you have to understand is that the human brain is incredibly lazy. It doesn't have the time or energy to fully vet every person it meets, so it relies on a psychological shortcut called the halo effect. This is a cognitive bias where the brain takes one single obvious high-value trait, like how you carry yourself, and uses it to fill in the blanks for your entire character. If a woman's subconscious sees a man who moves with authority and looks comfortable in his own skin, her brain automatically assumes he is also successful, intelligent, and socially confident, even before he says a single word. You are essentially hacking her perception of your entire life story through one physical signal. To make this work for you, the fix is simple. From the moment you leave your house, I want you to walk like you own the lease to the building. Most men over 35 walk around like they're apologizing for the space they occupy. Shoulders slumped forward, neck craned toward a smartphone, and chest collapsed. That is the posture of a prey animal, and it signals high stress and low status. You need to do the exact opposite. Pin your shoulders back, keep your spine long, and keep your chin level with the horizon. When you open your chest and widen your frame, you aren't being aggressive. You are being expansive, which is the ultimate sign of a man who isn't threatened by his environment. There is real hard science behind why this works so effectively. When you adopt an open, high-power posture, your body undergoes an immediate chemical shift. Research shows that this specific way of standing actually drops your cortisol levels, the hormone responsible for stress and flight responses, while simultaneously spiking your internal sense of presence and dominance. I've seen men in my private coaching sessions have women guess they were 2 inches taller than they actually were just because they fixed their frame. It isn't magic, it's biological signaling. When you take up your fair share of space, her subconscious instantly tags you as a high-status, grounded man who is the anchor in the room, making you infinitely more magnetic than the guy fidgeting in the corner. When it comes to the art of eye contact, most men completely miss the mark. They either stare too intensely, which comes off like a predator hunting prey, or they nervously dart their eyes away the second they're spotted, which makes them look guilty or low value. Neither of these approaches builds attraction. They build discomfort. To master this, you need to use the half-second rule. The moment you lock eyes with a woman, don't panic and don't look down. Instead, hold that gaze for a deliberate 1 Mississippi count. While you're holding it, give a tiny, almost imperceptible nod or a very slight half smirk. And then, this is the most important part. You must be the one to break the eye contact first by looking away to the side. By being the one to end the moment, you communicate that you noticed her and aren't intimidated, but you also aren't desperate for her attention. It creates an instant psychological cliffhanger that leaves her wondering why you weren't the one to look away in a fluster. The second half of this silent communication is your blink rate, which is a massive biological tell that most people overlook. In the animal kingdom, nervous or anxious prey animals blink rapidly. Think of a hummingbird or a rabbit, because their nervous systems are in overdrive. High-value, dominant mammals, on the other hand, blink much slower because they feel completely safe and in control of their environment. When you are sitting across from a woman or listening to her speak, consciously practice slowing down your blink rate. Let your eyelids rise and fall just a fraction slower than normal. This simple adjustment projects a heavy, calm, and controlled energy. It signals to her biological hardwiring that you are a man of steady nerves. When she senses that you are unshakable, it allows her own nervous system to relax, which is often when you'll notice her pupils widen as she subconsciously starts to feel safe and attracted to your steadiness. One of the biggest giveaways of a man's internal state is the speed of his speech. When you're anxious or feeling low value, your brain subconsciously convinces you that your time is running out. You start to rush your words because you're afraid you'll be interrupted or that the person you're talking to will lose interest. This rapid-fire talking is a performance for attention, and it signals to everyone around you that your nervous system is in a state of fight or flight. High-value men, however, understand that they are worth listening to, so they never feel the need to race toward the end of a sentence. They speak with the quiet authority of someone who knows the room will wait for them to finish. To master this, I want you to practice the 10% rule. Whenever you are in a social situation, consciously speak 10% slower than what feels natural to you. In your head, it might feel like you're moving in slow motion, but to the person listening, it sounds like pure, unshakable confidence. This slight deceleration does something incredible to your biology. It naturally lowers the register of your voice, giving it a deeper, richer, and more resonant quality. Because you aren't gasping for air between sentences, your voice carries more weight and authority. The impact of this shift on attraction is massive. Women are biologically tuned to pick up on a regulated nervous system, and a calm, measured voice is one of the clearest signals that a man is safe and in control of himself. I've heard it time and time again from women in my research. They don't always know why they feel drawn to a certain man, but they'll say, "When he speaks, I just find myself trusting him more." By slowing down, you stop performing for her attention and start leading the interaction. You aren't chasing the conversation anymore, you're the one setting the pace. Most men carry around a psychological weight called the spotlight illusion, which is the false belief that everyone around them is staring at their flaws with a magnifying glass. You might be losing sleep over your receding hairline, a few extra pounds around the middle, or the gray hairs starting to show in your beard. But here is the liberating truth. Nobody is studying your imperfections nearly as hard as you are. In fact, most people are too busy worrying about their own insecurities to notice yours. When you obsess over these details, you start engaging in low-value micro-behaviors, like constantly tugging at your shirt to hide your stomach or adjusting your hat to cover your head. These nervous habits are actually what draw attention to your flaws, signaling to everyone that you don't feel comfortable in your own skin. To flip the script, you have to make a conscious mental shift. The moment you stop trying to hide your flaws, they effectively become invisible. When you stop fidgeting and start moving with ease, you communicate that you have nothing to prove and nothing to hide. I once worked with a 52-year-old patient who was absolutely terrified of his gray hair. He thought it made him look past his prime and invisible to women. I challenged him to stop the cover-up and simply own his look. The second he stopped being self-conscious about it, the feedback he got from women shifted almost instantly. They stopped seeing him as old and started describing him as distinguished and authoritative. At the end of the day, your confidence acts as the ultimate filter for any physical imperfection. A man who owns his age and his body exactly as they are projects a level of self-assurance that is infinitely more attractive than a perfect-looking man who is clearly insecure. When you stop acting like your flaws are a problem, the rest of the world stops seeing them as a problem too. By leaning into who you are right now, you replace the spotlight illusion with a sense of quiet dignity that commands respect without you saying a single word. One of the clearest signs of a man who lacks confidence is a frantic need to fill every single gap in a conversation. Most men over 35 feel an intense pressure to perform. They think that if there is even a 2-second pause, the interaction is dying or they're failing. This fear leads to over-explaining, oversharing, and nervous chatter that completely kills any mystery. But here is the truth you need to internalize. Silence is only awkward if you are nervous. When you are a grounded, high-value man, silence isn't a mistake. It's a tool. Silence creates psychological tension, and in the world of human biology, tension is the very foundation of attraction. If there's no tension, there's no pull. And without that pull, you're just two people having a polite, forgettable chat. To master this, you have to practice a specific move. After you say something, just stop. Resist the urge to add filler words to soften your statement or to ask, "Does that make sense?" to chase her reaction. Let your words land and stay there. You can also apply this when she asks you a question by using what I call a pregnant pause. Instead of rushing to answer immediately like you're taking a verbal exam, wait half a beat. Hold her gaze for a second, stay relaxed, and then respond. This tiny pocket of silence communicates elite emotional control, the ability to sit in a moment of tension without flinching or feeling the need to fix it. This level of self-assurance is incredibly rare and highly attractive. When you don't rush to fill the space, you subconsciously tell her that you are comfortable with yourself and that you aren't desperate for her approval. You'll be shocked at how often, during that brief silence, she will be the one to lean in further, smile, or start talking more to close the gap. By doing less, you are actually achieving more. You stop being the one performing for the interaction and start being the man who anchors it, proving that you have the emotional maturity to lead the moment rather than just reacting to it. One of the most subtle but powerful ways you communicate your value is through the speed of your physical movements. A man who is always in a hurry, fidgeting with his keys, darting his eyes around the room, or checking his phone every 30 seconds, subconsciously signals that he is reactive to his environment rather than in control of it. To a woman, this frantic energy reads as neediness or anxiety, suggesting that you aren't fully present in the moment because you're worried about what's happening next or searching for an escape. When you aren't present, you aren't attractive, because presence is the foundation of true masculine energy. To fix this, you need to master the art of intentional movement by consciously slowing down your microactions. Think about the way you take a sip of water, turn your head when someone calls your name, or even how you sit down in a chair. Instead of dropping into a seat like you're collapsing from exhaustion, lower yourself calmly and deliberately, as if you have all the time in the world. When you turn to look at her, do it smoothly rather than with a jerky, startled motion. These small adjustments might feel insignificant to you, but they send a massive signal to her subconscious. They say that you are a man who is comfortable in his surroundings and completely unbothered by outside pressure. The logic here is simple but profound. In almost every social hierarchy, the person with the most power is the person who is the least rushed. Think about a high-level CEO or a world leader. They don't scurry around or move with frantic energy. By moving with intent, you are adopting the body language of power. This doesn't mean moving in slow motion like a robot. It means eliminating the nervous, wasted energy that makes you look smaller. When you move with smooth, calm precision, you look higher status and more grounded without having to utter a single word of your resume. You become the eye of the storm, the one steady point in a fast-moving world. Real confidence is never loud or desperate for attention. It is the quiet, steady tone of a man who doesn't need anyone's permission to exist in the space he's in. One of the biggest attraction killers for men over 35 is a habit called up-talking, where you end your sentences with a rising inflection that makes everything you say sound like a question. When you say, "We should go out sometime?" with that rising tone, you aren't making a suggestion. You're asking for approval. You're essentially putting the burden of leadership on her. To fix this, you need to speak with downward inflection. Instead of asking if you should go out, you state it. "We should go out sometime." That tiny shift in your voice changes the entire dynamic from a boy asking for a favor to a man leading a conversation with certainty. This certainty should also be reflected in how you use your face, specifically when you smile. Most men who feel insecure will over-smile, wearing a big forced grin that screams, "Please like me." This kind of performing smile actually signals weakness because it shows you're trying too hard to please others. Instead, you want to master the micro smile, often called the Duchamp smile. This is the look you see on guys like George Clooney. It's a relaxed, neutral mouth combined with a slight, warm crinkle at the corners of the eyes. It's a look that says you're genuinely enjoying the moment, but you don't need anything from it. The logic behind the micro smile is rooted in emotional safety. A woman can find a man physically handsome, but if his energy feels frantic or try hard, she will subconsciously keep her distance. The micro smile tells her that you are relaxed, grounded, and emotionally stable. It signals warmth without the neediness of a performer, giving her the ultimate green light to lean in and engage. When you stop seeking her validation through your words and your smiles, you ironically become the very thing she wants to move toward. You become the man who is already complete, which is the most attractive state you can possibly be in. I want to be very clear about one thing. None of these triggers are about being fake or putting on a costume. This isn't about acting like someone you're not. It's about stripping away the nervous, low-value habits that have been making you look smaller and more anxious than you actually are. As a man over 35, you already have the life experience, the stories, and the depth. You just need your external signals to finally match the man you've become on the inside. Most men aren't actually unattractive. They're just tense, rushed, and constantly performing. The moment you stop performing for the world, you start pulling the world toward you. You are moving from a state of chasing to a state of presence, and that shift changes everything about how you are perceived. So, here is your challenge for tomorrow. Don't try to overhaul your entire personality at once. That's how you end up looking stiff and unnatural. Instead, I want you to pick just 3 of these triggers to focus on for the next 24 hours. Maybe you choose the expansive posture, the 10% slower speech, and the half-second eye contact rule. Take them out into the real world and test them. You will quickly notice that it's not just women who respond differently. You'll see a new level of respect from colleagues, strangers, and friends alike. People will start treating you like the anchor in the room because you've stopped asking for permission to be there.